Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 41 of the Anatomy of Knitting podcast. My name is Erin, and I'll be your host. It is currently July 3rd, 2012, and in today's episode I'm going to give you all a little bit of an update, tell you what's been on the needles, off the needles, and then give a spinning update. So let's get started. So welcome back to another episode. It has been a bit of a break. I did not intend to miss about a month of podcasting when I last podcasted. I was sort of hit by a big old Mack truck of tiredness and ended up taking about 2 naps a day every day for about the last month, which is insane. I've not slept that much probably since I was an infant. And if I didn't know the reason why that I was sleeping so much, I would have totally thought that I had mono or something. But I actually have a good reason for not podcasting. Actually, 2 good reasons. That's right. The reason I haven't been podcasting is because I've been tired because I am currently pregnant with twins. So, it's a little terrifying, but exciting. I'm just about out of the first trimester. I've got about a half of a week left, so I feel pretty confident announcing this on the podcast. I am due in the beginning of January, but statistically in the United States, we don't tend to give birth near the due dates when we have twins. So chances are I'll be giving birth sometime in December, and right now I'm not exactly sure what that means for the future of the podcast. I figure we'll play it by ear. I might have to stop recording and go down on my storage stuff on Libsyn, maybe just temporarily. I'm not exactly sure how that's all going to work out, but rest assured I will podcast as I am able. And but as you can imagine, there might be a big lull in between podcast episodes, and I hope you can understand and forgive. So, let's continue on. Thank you all for being understanding, and let's get started with the rest of the podcast. So what's been on the needles? I have been knitting a fair amount since I last talked to you. Not a whole heck of a lot because of, again, the sleepiness. But I have gotten a bit of progress done on some of the things. I'm not exactly sure where I was when I last spoke to you about these socks. These are the stockinette socks that I'm using Sweet Georgia Superwash sock in Sunsets and Car Crashes, I believe, is the colorway name. I know I was at some point on this sock. I hadn't finished it, so as you can see, we have a finished sock and the beginnings of a cuff on the second sock. So I really like the way, hello Ari, you might hear some cat noises. I really like the way that this is striping up, and it's working out pretty well on both socks. I'm really enjoying that. Let's see. The Sweet Georgia Superwash sock is a really nice yarn to work with. It's nice and squishy. The colors are beautiful like always. And it's just a really enjoyable knit. And again, it's just my usual sock recipe of about 1 inch of 1x1 ribbing. And then about a 5 or 6 inch cuff, doing a slip stitch heel, as a regular heel gusset, like so. And then a stockinette stitch foot, and then a wedge toe. Just the usual stuff. Y'all have seen that before. And this is all of the yarn that I had left over from the first sock. So that's that. The second thing that I have been working on, I've been going, because this room, I wasn't truthful with you all. The last time that I podcasted, I told you that the reason that I was, changing the yarn room up was because of the renovations. Well, it's because this is going to be the nursery. Sorry, but I figured you would understand why I was a bit untruthful. But since I've been doing that, I have been going through all of my yarn stash, and I've been putting it in separate containers so I can have some storage up here and then some storage downstairs in the guest room. And so because I've been going through all of my stash, I have been kind of going through the older stash, the more vintage stash, shall we say. And because I've been doing that, I've found some things that I purchased a while ago that I wanted to use. And the first thing, I got some tangledness issues here. The first thing I saw was this yarn. It was a gradient colorway, and it's 4 separate skeins. 2 of the skeins I've knit up already. This is the 3rd skein, and then this is the 4th skein. It was a gradient by the Unique Sheep, and this is their fingering superwash sock. And it's the Ascent colorway, and this was part of the, for those of you who are familiar with Sock Summit, for the first Sock Summit in 2011, I believe? 2010. I can't remember. Anyway, the first Sock Summit had a Dye for Glory contest, and that was DYE. So a lot of yarn companies decided to create a special colorway for Sock Summit, and the Unique Sheep decided to create a gradient colorway, and so it's these 4 colors here. And my original plan was to make socks out of it, but because I hadn't actually done anything with it, I decided that I was going to make a cowl out of it. So I cast on, I think this was 120 stitches on US 4 needles, and I'm just knitting a stockinette stitch cowl. The larger needles was to get it kind of a more drapier fabric. And with the gradient yarn, it's suggested that the way that you change colors is like a certain, you knit one row of color A, 1 row of color B, 2 rows of color A, 2 rows of color B, and then, repeat that to make it sort of a gradient colorway. But I was too lazy to look up those instructions when I decided to knit this. So what I ended up doing was just creating a purl ridge where the color change ended up being. You'll see the other one here. And I'm kind of happy with the way that turned out. I think I might have liked, kind of doing the gradual color shift, but whatever. It's a cowl, and it's going to kind of be bunched up, so chances are nobody will see it. Let's see if I can actually get it over my head. So I'm going to block this out pretty severely as well. So I can kind of see a reflection in my computer there. So it'll kind of look like that. Just a plain old stockinette stitch cowl. And so I've got about, there we go. I've got about half of the 3rd color done, maybe about 3/4 of it. I knit until the ball is completely gone, and then I'll add the last color here, and then I'll block severely to kind of get out all of the drapiness that I can. So that is that cowl. And I'm using my signature needles. And that's that. Get that back in its bag. Let's see if there's anything else about that. Nope, not from my notes. And then the last thing that I have been working on, I am using Hazelnut's Artisan Sock in the Chocolatier colorway and the Laguna colorway. So like so. And I started last night the Stripe Study shawl. And this is an asymmetrical shawl. It's, got a bunch of tangles here. It's an asymmetrical shawl that uses short rows for shaping, to kind of get that asymmetry. You'll notice that this side's stripes are a lot thicker than the other side. And it's just going to be a triangular shawl, or an asymmetrical triangular shawl. So this is the main color, the chocolatier, and it's a total of 12 stripes, and those stripes get thicker as you go on. I'll show it the other way as well, like so. And I'm using my Wee Ones stitch markers. These are my hummingbirds. And at this point I am keeping all of my yarn attached to the shawl, because the parts where you switch up where the yarn changes are still pretty narrow. It's not like they're getting wider like on this side. So as long as I can, I'm going to try not to cut the ends of the yarn, so that way I just don't have a bunch of ends to weave in. Plus, I think the yardage that the two colors are called for is like 440 yards, and this is only 400 yards, so my shawl will end up being a little bit smaller, but that's okay. I'm not really broken up about it. I'm just trying to use stash that I have. And then this is using US 6s on my signature needles. And I started this last night, like I said. So it's a pretty quick knit. I got this much done, I think in about 3 hours. So that's that. And I believe that is all of the things that are currently on the needles. So let's talk about what's been off the needles. So, off the needles. I have two things that are off the needles. The first one is, unfortunately I don't have any pictures of it, because I was silly and forgot to get pictures after I gifted it to my mom. And that was the Washington Square vest. That's the vest that's in mostly stockinette stitch. It's got, it starts out at the bottom, it's got like a mistake rib, and then stockinette stitch, and then this band of a woven cable around the midsection. And then it splits into a really deep V-neck, and it's got lace on this front edge. So I ended up finishing that up. Let's see, I ended up waiting to find buttons for it until I went down to visit my parents again, which was, I think, about a couple of weeks ago now. So I ended up going to the Button Emporium, because the Button Emporium just has the best button selection that I've seen practically everywhere. And so I found these really cool Celtic knot buttons. My mom's a really big fan of Celtic knot designs, so I knew that those would be perfect, and they were sort of this coppery color, which went really well with that green. Let's see, the vest was knit using US 5s and US 7s. The 7s were used at the woven cable portion, because the cable, you know, just the act of doing cables makes the gauge tighter. And used Cascade 220 in the Lake Chelan colorway. Let's see, anything else? I didn't do the couture button tutorial that I've usually done for sweaters. It was only 5 buttons, and so yeah, my mom really likes it, but I finished it in perfect time for the weather to get a little bit warmer, and so she probably won't be wearing it until closer to fall when the weather cools down a little bit more. So, you know, go me for the timing. The other thing that's been off the needles is a sweater for myself, which is kind of crazy. Don't be too impressed though, because it's a bulky yarn sweater. And this is the, oh, I gotta block it so it's all like curly and not attractive at the moment. So this is the Shalom cardigan. And the Shalom cardigan was designed by, give me just a moment, bad podcaster, I was not prepared with who designed this. This is Megan McFarlane. I ended up adjusting it a little bit. The first thing that I did was I cast on 10 more stitches across the top than what was called for in the pattern, because the pattern is written for, I want to say like a 32 or a 36 inch bust, and after I lost all that weight, because I lost 40 pounds between October and April, yeah, April I think, and so my bust size went down about 4 inches, so I was knitting more towards the 44 inch bust mark, but now with the event in my life, I am growing again, which is a little frustrating, but not totally unexpected. So I was aiming for, I think, a 46 inch size, and I'm trying to, these styles of sweaters where it just has the one button at the top have never really been super flattering on me, because I'm a little bit of a more plus size person, and it always made me look pregnant, which when you're not pregnant you don't really want to go for. But I figured since I was pregnant, this would be like the one time in my life where I could wear one of these look pregnant sweaters and actually be happy that I look pregnant. So it's just one of these one button sweaters at the top. It's got this twisted rib section, 3 of those. And so you cast on, so many stitches for the neckline, and you do this 1 by 1 twisted ribbing, and then you increase 1 by 1 twisted ribbing, increase 1 by 1 twisted ribbing. You switch to stockinette stitch, and you knit, you put the sleeves, the pattern says to cast off for the sleeves, and originally it was only supposed to be like that, but I figured since I had extra yarn, I would make sleeves. So I think they're about 3/4 inch. And then I knit for the stockinette stitch of the body, and then I knit a garter bit at the bottom. And it looks super tiny. And oh, I got this button at the Button Emporium when I got the buttons from my mom. And this is not how I intend to wear it with the cardigan that I have on. So it's kind of one of those open button sweaters. And then way open, and then it'll have the belly sticking out. So the sleeves are a little bunchy because I got my sweater underneath kind of bunched up underneath it. So they're about 3/4 inch sleeves. And I think this will be a good layering piece in the late fall-ish. This is using GGH Aspen, which is acrylic and wool, and it's a bulky weight yarn. And this is way vintage stash. Like, this is so vintage. I think I purchased it, geez, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. Whew, it's crazy. But it is that vintage. So I'm happy to get it all out of my stash. And I knit this using all 15 skeins that I had and US 10 needles, which was kind of crazy because I'm not used to knitting that bulky. So there is the sweater and the 2 sleeves. And that is everything that's been off the needles. So a vest and a sweater, but don't be too impressed by the sweater because it's bulky yarn. So let's move on to spinning. So for spinning, there's not a whole heck of a lot to talk about. I haven't really been doing too much on the cupcake bats because I've mostly just been either sleeping or attempting to work on the yarn room / nursery. But I found that when I get home from work, if I'm working on a project that requires a fair amount of brain power, that I shouldn't do the project that requires a whole heck of a lot of brain power. So I spin downstairs because I keep my e-spinner right in front of the TV there. And so I have finished spinning up all of the border Leicester cross wool, and this is all that's left that I need to finish plying. It's probably, let's see, about a half an ounce to an ounce. I'm going to wind this up on the ball winder and then two ply it that way. So this is all that's left, and then I'll be done. And I'm like super excited to start another thing, another fleece on the e-spinner, but I can't because I am going to Port Townsend this weekend, or this upcoming weekend, to attend a Judith McKenzie Put Your E-Spinner Through Its Paces class. So I have to keep my bobbins empty, which is really tough because I want to spin. Let's see. Yeah, so the spinning class that I'm going to, it's from Sunday to Tuesday. My husband's going to do a motorcycle ride on the peninsula as well, so he's going to end up meeting me, I think, Monday night, and staying the night with me at the hotel. Let's see, what else will we be doing? I'll be learning all about my e-spinner and how to put it through its paces. There's going to be a trip to a fiber farm and a class put on, like a special education session put on by Judith McKenzie in the evening. That's not like an e-spinning class part. And I'll be getting back, let's see, I think Monday, is it Monday night or Tuesday night? I think it's Tuesday night. And then Wednesday morning I have to get up early and go to the doctor, which will be a bit of a challenge, but I shall handle it and overcome it. And as an aside, this whole pregnancy thing, oh my gosh, my husband and I live across the street, literally, from the place that we're hoping to give birth, and because I'm having twins, that automatically puts me at high risk. So, like, just having these babies is like a job unto itself. I have to gain a certain amount of weight, and I'm seeing doctors every 2 weeks, which is not something I'm used to. But thankfully, so far, it's all been pretty boring, actually. There's been no super exciting thing. The only super exciting things are the pictures. But, you know, whatever. Yeah, so that's all the spinning that I have to talk about, so let's wrap this up. So that's it for the episode. It's a bit on the shorter side. Didn't really feel like there was a whole heck of a lot of knitting that I got done while I was off a little bit. The next podcast recording, I was just looking at my schedule. So I'm working Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Then I go to the spinning class Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday I work, so there won't be a podcast recorded next week. Excuse me. But there will be on Monday the 16th of July, so that should be when the next podcast should be recorded. I might try and see if I can record some stuff during my spinning weekend, just to kind of give you all a little bit of a taste of that. Other than that, I think that is about it. I hope you all have a good week, and I will see you all on the boards, and feel free to give me any comments or questions to improve the podcast. I'm always open to that. And have a good week, and I'll see you in a few weeks. Bye!